Moscow, night of May 8th, on the eve of the Victory Day parade. Outside, snow fell quietly on the roof of St. Basil's Cathedral, like thin layers of ash from a memory that once burned fiercely. Inside a hotel room on the 11th floor, where the Burkina Faso delegation was staying, Arnaud Caboret, the newly appointed chief of security for President Ibrahim Traoré, stood motionless by the window. In his hand was an unbranded encrypted phone tossed into his room through the door slit at 7 p.m. On the screen appeared a brief message. "We have your wife and son. If you do not cooperate within 24 hours, they will no longer be a concern." Immediately following was a video. With trembling hands, he opened it. His wife, Rokia, had her hands bound behind her back in a bare concrete room. Beside her was their 3-year-old son crying in silence. A Russian newspaper placed in front of the camera confirmed the time and location. There was no sound, only the desperate gaze of the woman he loved most, staring into the lens as if begging him for something. Right after the video, another message arrived. "We will send you the device. Attach it to the inner lining of the president's coat before the parade. $8 million have already been deposited in a Swiss account. No need to touch him, no need to kill. We'll handle the rest. Just a simple choice. Between your family and your ideals." Arnaud collapsed onto the floor, his knees touching the cold ground. He didn't cry, he didn't scream, he just felt empty. For 10 years he had fought in the Sahel, facing guns, mines, and death. But never had he faced an invisible gun aimed straight at his heart, his family. He had once sworn allegiance to Burkina Faso. He had dreamed of a free Africa. He had believed with all his soul in the ideals Traoré stood for. But now, caught between his wife and son and his country, between a wrong choice that could be understood and a noble sacrifice whose value was uncertain, his heart was torn in two. He picked up the phone, intending to call, but his fingers froze. In his coat pocket he felt a familiar object, an old photograph. His wife holding their son on his first birthday. On the back, she had once written, "If one day you must choose between me and what is right, let me be proud that you chose what is right." 5:12 a.m. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. Arnaud stood in front of President Traoré's room in the silent hallway. He knew, if he spoke, his wife and child might die. But if he stayed silent, his conscience had already died. He knocked 3 times. The door opened. Ibrahim Traoré, wearing simple sleepwear, looked at him with unusually sharp eyes, as if he had been expecting him all along. "Couldn't sleep, Caboret?" Arnaud swallowed hard. There was no turning back. "Sir, I came here to betray you, but I need to tell the truth before it's too late." Traoré listened and asked just one question. "Do you trust me, Arnaud?" In the dimly lit room, Arnaud could only nod. Traoré stood up, picked up his encrypted personal phone, and entered a complex code. "Activate Protocol X-25. Request tactical support, red level. Call Colonel Dmitry Ivanov to my room. In 15 minutes. Arnaud froze in disbelief. That was the highest-tier Russian counterintelligence emergency protocol, used only in cases involving strategic-grade terrorist threats. A 20-minute closed-door meeting. 3 men. Ibrahim Traoré, fully aware of the battlefield. Arnaud Caboret, the insider with critical information. Colonel Ivanov, expert in electronic warfare and hostage rescue, veteran of several covert Middle Eastern operations. Traoré showed no anger. On the contrary, he turned Arnaud's pain into a strategic asset. "They don't know you've confessed. Good. We'll use that trust to lead them into a trap." Ivanov nodded. "We'll let the signal transmit, but not from the president's coat." Operation Twin Bears begins. Bear 1. The Digital Counterstrike 1. The Decoy President, a living impersonation. At a secured facility in a military base on the outskirts of Moscow, Lieutenant Colonel Sergei Malenkov, an FSB officer trained in motion mimicry, was selected to play the role of Traoré. During 6 hours of intensive briefing, Malenkov was coached meticulously on every detail. How Traoré rotates his wrist when adjusting his watch, the purposeful cadence of his stride, carrying the aura of an African officer, even his reflexes when caught off guard by a camera flash, a squint of the left eye, a half smile, a slight tilt of the head to the left. The special disguise was crafted by a team of professional makeup artists who had previously worked in the Russian film industry. It combined a biological-grade rubber mask with a synthetic skin coating that replicated African pigmentation, making it nearly impossible for even close-range bodyguards to detect the difference. To enhance authenticity, several members of the Burkina Faso diplomatic delegation were intentionally kept in the dark. Only top-level officials were aware that this was a decoy. The false signal, real but not real. The device handed to Arnaud by the terrorists was a high-frequency tracking microchip, capable of emitting a continuous location signal for up to 4 hours. When attached to a person, it would simulate real-time tracking with uncanny accuracy. However, Ivanov's technical team had taken it several steps further. They didn't deactivate the device, but instead used it as the primary source transmitter. Around Red Square, they installed a microwave reflection system embedded in 3 nearby buildings, forming a web of digital mirrors that refracted and restructured the GPS signals emitted by the device. The result, no matter where the attackers were located, they would only see the decoy Traoré moving through the expected path, from the motorcade to the ceremonial platform, sitting in the correct position and departing on schedule. The signal was kept at low but stable strength to avoid suspicion. If it had been too perfect, it could have raised alarms. Every detail was programmed with just the right amount of noise interference, indistinguishable from reality. The bait and the trap laid 11:04 a.m. The signal of Traoré was stationary on the ceremonial platform, precisely when the terrorist cell gave the order to deploy a new generation stealth drone, launched from a basement in the Yaroslavsky district on Moscow's outskirts. This drone was equipped with thermal targeting systems and GPS synchronization, but it bypassed Russian radar thanks to its wave-absorbing stealth coating. But Ivanov had been waiting for exactly this. The building where the decoy Traoré was seated was in fact a repurposed Soviet-era military storage facility, now transformed into a mobile anti-air defense station, equipped with 2 Igla-S short-range launchers, specifically designed for close-range aerial targets. A directional pulse laser cannon, used to blind the drone's optical sensors. And on the roof, a decoy radar emitter, generating fake signals to lure the drone into a perfect kill zone. 11:12 a.m. The drone entered the engagement perimeter. A flash of electromagnetic burst erupted. Within less than 4 seconds, the drone turned into a swirling ball of fire, crashing onto the roof of the building, shattered into oblivion beneath the ceremonial gunfire and heroic orchestration of the parade. No one in the stands noticed a thing, but on the 17th floor of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, 2 drone operators stared blankly at their screens, cut to static. Before they could react, 2 Russian operatives slipped into the room, sliding their knives cleanly across wrists and silently subduing them from behind their chairs. Bear 2. The Rescue. Vanishing Underground. 9:43 p.m., May 8th. Tactical Operations Room, basement level, Embassy of Burkina Faso in Moscow. In front of a large screen replaying the threat video Arnaud had received, Colonel Ivanov walked slowly, arms crossed. The clip lasted only 11 seconds, no dialogue. Just the dim glow of a ceiling light, a peeling wall, a rusted iron pipe visible in the corner, a flickering bulb casting uneven shadows on moss-stained concrete. But to Ivanov, it was a hidden map. I need AI to analyze the background audio vibrations. Give me the resonance frequency of the ceiling. Cross-section the wall materials. Check the light spectrum. If it runs on municipal power, it'll generate frequency noise. If it's a standalone generator, we can estimate the distance from the main grid. 3 minutes later, the AI returned. Light, warm sodium bulb, low efficiency, commonly found in Soviet-era underground bunkers. Walls, thin concrete with soundproof coating, typical of metro utility zones. Ambient sound, 47.9 Hz, repeating every 90 seconds, matches the frequency of trains passing through Kurskaya station. Ivanov nodded slightly. Good. That gives us a 300-meter radius around the Kurskaya underground service network. Focus on abandoned maintenance vaults, especially those near control valves. 12:17 a.m., May 9th. Silent advance. A team of 6 elite operatives, 3 Russians, 3 from Burkina Faso, was divided into 2 units. No heavy weapons, no long guns, only combat knives, silenced pistols, and bone conduction earpiece comms. Outfits, plumber uniforms, reflective safety vests, hard hats, bearing the logo of the Moscow Meteorological Infrastructure Authority. They blended in seamlessly with real crews working late shifts ahead of the parade. No one raised an eyebrow. Approaching from a storm drain and an underground utility tunnel, they reached a dust-covered brown iron hatch, flagged by the AI as the most probable access point. 1 a.m. Sending the eye first. They unsealed a vent above the room using a noiseless precision cutter. A nano-surveillance robot, no larger than a human hand, crawled quietly through the shaft. It was equipped with a 360-degree camera, thermal scanner, CO2 sensors, and directional microphone. Live feed began to stream in black and white. A long underground chamber dimly lit with 4 armed men. 3 were standing guard wielding AKSUs and Makarovs. 1 sat near Rokia, Arnaud's wife, still bound to a steel chair. On the floor nearby, their young son slept curled up next to a plastic bag with bottled water and stale bread. The robot detected a sudden 3°C temperature rise near the side exit, evidence of a portable generator in operation. Then, everyone held their breath. Under the lead guard's table was a timer device attached to a junction box, clearly a remotely triggered explosive. Ivanov's voice cut through the room, low and grim. They're not just threatening. They're prepared to erase all evidence if discovered. 2:04 a.m. Codeword: Shadow Dome. Ivanov gave the go-ahead for a tactic known as silent vaporization, a famed FSB strategy from the Chechen War. First, emit a low-intensity electromagnetic pulse to disable electronics temporarily. Then, blast scattered white LED strobe lights for 2 seconds to disorient visual sensors and human eyesight. Finally, the team would strike, silent and invisible. 2:06 a.m. Operation begins. The circuit was cut. Lights flickered. The room went pitch black. In the next 4 seconds, chaos broke loose. The first guard was yanked backward and knocked unconscious within 2 heartbeats. The second spun with his rifle, but a knife went straight through his throat. The third tried to run, but a suppressed bullet hit his knee. He collapsed in a cryless heap. The fourth was captured alive, reserved for interrogation. 2:10 a.m. Room secured. Hearts still beating. Rokia blinked in shock as a flashlight beamed into her eyes. A whisper followed. "Are you Rokia Kabore? We're from Unit 47. You're safe now. Keep your head down, eyes closed. We'll have you out in 3 minutes." Her son was gently lifted by a female operative, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Both mother and child were led through a maintenance tunnel toward an upper utility level. 3 a.m. The sewer grate sealed shut. No explosion, no alarms, no sirens. The terrorists never realized they had just lost their hostages. Rokia clutched her son tightly, her hands still trembling. Nearby, an operative with a comms earpiece whispered softly, "Kabore kept his word. Now it's your turn to live." The end, but not quite. 11 a.m. The Victory Day parade concluded successfully. The real Traoré stepped out from a high-level observation post, where he had monitored the entire operation. That evening, in the diplomatic bunker beneath the embassy of Burkina Faso, Arnaud reunited with his wife and son. He hugged his boy tightly, speechless. Before leaving, Traoré said only one sentence. "You are the only one who betrayed me by telling the truth, and that's why you're still here." On the flight back to Ouagadougou, Arnaud bowed before the president and returned his presidential guard insignia. "I am not worthy," but Traoré simply smiled, then silently handed him his iconic red beret, placing it in Arnaud's hand. "You overcame what none of our enemies could: temptation. You chose to speak the truth, and that takes more courage than any bullet. 1 year later, on the stone wall in front of the newly established Academy for Ethical Security in Burkina Faso, a phrase was carved. Loyalty is not automatic. It is a choice, faced at the edge of the abyss. Arnaud had become the lead trainer for the next generation of presidential bodyguards. In every lesson, he reminded them, sometimes a hero is not the one who never makes mistakes, but the one who chooses the right path in time, to correct it and save what matters most: dignity. Thank you for listening to the end of this story. Though fictional, it was written to highlight the depth of one man's loyalty. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel. Your support inspires us to create more powerful stories. Thank you again.